Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
This message comes from Jackson. Taxes aren't something you can only think about once a year. With investments, planning for tax day is year-round. Fortunately, Jackson offers tax-efficient products. Visit jackson.com for more information on how our products can make your tax bill a little bit less painful. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Incorporated, Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello and welcome back to the Psycholegal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm the therapist, Tess Brigham, and normally Brooke would be here to say she's the attorney, but this is the second part of our two-part episode about Scott and Laci Peterson. So please enjoy. Thank you so much for your support.
Anyway, they completely ruled out that this burglary or any of this had anything to do with Laci's disappearance. And so in trial, the prosecution probably did what's called a motion in limine, which before trial, if there's evidence that you want to keep out or things that you want to make sure the jury doesn't hear, you file a motion and you say why. Mm-hmm. And I have not seen the motion or what the basis for the motion is, but I'm guessing they're going to say it's going to be, that these two events are completely unrelated. And if this gets admitted, it's going to be prejudicial to the state because it's going to, confuse the jurors or make them think that this has some kind of validity or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so that motion was granted. Mm-hmm. And so the defense could not introduce anything about the burglary. So they couldn't present an alternate theory. And then here's something that's really a shame. For whatever reason, Garagos decided not to put on those witnesses.
Yeah, which really surprises me. Yeah.
And the other lawyer that was working with him, attorney Laura, I can't remember her last name, but yeah, she talked about how these witnesses had been so just kind of abused by the police, discounted by the police. And they kind of got to a point where, they just didn't really want to be involved. And that they just thought I don't know, he just made a decision that he didn't think they would be good witnesses because the police had made them bad witnesses.
Yeah, the police had confused. The other thing too is when you again, coming back to my media thing, if the media wasn't involved in any of this, then because I think that there is the detectives could argue, these people are just looky-loos trying to get on the bandwagon, trying to get seen, trying to get famous, right? So that's why the media should not have been involved. This should not be something that could even be. You coming forward shouldn't be anything that will ever give you money or fame or anything, period. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the problem. And again, don't forget, Amber Fry wrote a book. Amber Fry had a movie made. Amber Fry, I think she had to pay for Gloria Allred, but, Gloria Allred takes a percentage. So I understand she needed to get an attorney, but again, she also financially profited from this.
Oh, yeah, Sharon Rocha wrote a book, I believe.
Yeah.
Everyone always writes a book.
But there shouldn't be these secondary gains for these kinds of things. We got to make this more pure. Just keep going.
Yeah. So that was all a big blow to the defense. And then,
but can I ask a quick question about this?
Uh-huh.
Kind of a dumb question, but so what I don't understand about this is I understand. Okay, I understand. Like, you don't want to introduce a bunch of stuff that's going to confuse the jury, but in a sense, by having a jury, aren't we saying that we're entrusting that these people can figure things out on their own? Like, why are you telling me what I should or should not hear if you think it's gonna confuse me? If this is gonna confuse me, then maybe I shouldn't be on the jury a little. Do you know what I mean? It's a little bit of like, well, how do you know it's gonna confuse me? Or how do you know do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, but here's the thing. Whenever there's a lot of considerations for whether or not something gets admitted into evidence. And one of the baseline considerations is relevance. It has to, number one, be relevant. And I think that's where the judge was going with this.
And does this prevent defense attorneys from coming up with like, well, maybe it was an alien that came down and dropped out of the sky? Could it be that, right? To allow people not to come in and make false claims or just start throwing things?
I don't understand what you mean.
Well, if you didn't have these procedures where you all had to agree on what was going to be admitted into evidence, do we do that as a way of preventing someone just coming in and throwing everything in the kitchen sink at someone? I mean,
you want to keep this trial focused and orderly. Mm-hmm. And if you let the attorneys just go off on any old tangent, I mean, you could be there for years.
Okay.
And there's a lot of different rules of evidence. And so there's always all kinds of stuff like this. Mm-hmm. This is just one of many things. And this was not in the documentaries, but I seem to recall that I think Garagos tried to get this into evidence and it was denied, where he did that reenactment of what it would take to like lift a woman's body out of that little boat, and it was impossible to do without tipping over and that type of thing. So yeah, I'm sure there was a lot of stuff that they argued about before the trial even started. But that was a big one. The witnesses not coming in was a big one. And then another big issue was the lack of time and understanding of the case that the defense had. And this came from the attorney that worked on it with Mark Garagos, because Scott didn't want to waive time for a speedy trial. And so he was arrested in April of 2003. The trial started June 1st, or maybe even in May 2004. So basically a year, maybe 13 months, they had to prepare for a death penalty trial. Mm-hmm. That's not a lot of time. And what she was saying was that, it took, and this is true, it takes time to figure out the case and all the nuances and all the evidence and all the everything, and to kind of have time to let that gel and how you're going to approach this and what you're going to do. And it just wasn't enough time.
Yeah.
Wasn't enough time.
Scott does own that. He did. I mean, he was a little, he kind of was like, well, yeah, maybe I needed to give it more time. And I do kind of sort of regret that. And it's interesting just hearing Scott speak of how, and I don't know if this is 20 years in prison. I don't know if this is age or what, but just how, again, he's still very casual about things. Like, if it was me, if I was wrongly convicted, I swear to God, I would be screaming to the top of my lungs at anyone who would listen to me. And so I guess I'm constantly amazed by how casual and how calm he is when he talks about, I probably shouldn't have, I should have given it more time, because he didn't like being in jail. Yeah. It wasn't fun.
He was focused on getting out of custody, because your county jail is not a good place to be.
And I think this is also this, because this was not his world and nothing he'd ever seen and conditions he had never had. And I do wonder if he was someone who maybe lived a different kind of life. Maybe he could have stood that a lot longer. Like, but I think he was very much like, oh, this sucks. Like, I want out.
Yeah. No, and working with, criminal defendants, people who've been around the block, they know that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll sit here in county jail for a while so that I can get a better deal.
Mm-hmm.
Or they understand. So yeah, because he didn't want to wait more than a year, he's now done 20 years in prison.
Yeah.
And he was on death row. So I think that, being incarcerated for 20 years and having lost every appeal at every turn. And he did get the sentence down to life in prison. But, I think at this point he's resigned himself. I feel that he had a lot of resignation in him. And while obviously he wants this current stuff to, go somewhere, I just kind of got the feeling that, he's a lot wiser now and he's probably not getting his hopes up too much.
Yeah. I wonder how things are for him at this prison, like how people perceive him. Because, when you're on death row, you're pretty isolated, right?
You're very isolated.
You're very isolated. You're not around other people. I thought one thing was interesting was that, because you're inside so much, you have this lack of vitamin D. When like looking at him, you could see like the lack of vitamin D really.
It's very pale,
the collagen, you could tell. It was interesting just looking at him. I could tell like, oh, you haven't had a lot of sunlight. So you're very isolated. And I wonder what's wrong, because he's not in San Quentin anymore. I guess now that he's in Gen Pop or General Population at a different prison. They mentioned the prison in here.
Oh, Mule Creek prison.
Yeah. Where is that?
That's in Ione. That's way up in bumfuck California, Northern California.
Oh, it's way north? Oh, I was thinking it was down south. Oh, God, that poor family has to go up there all the time. I mean, his family? Are they still in San Diego?
Yeah, Janie, she lives in San Diego. I think one of them might live closer. Let's see, city in California. Amador County.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that is north, isn't it?
That's way up there.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it's only 2 hours from here.
Yeah. Well, we could go visit him.
But my God. Maybe, do you think he would take our visits?
We have a podcast. Would you tell us what happened? Would you actually,
Yeah. Can we get one of those video visits?
One of those video visits. Well, because it was very famously when he first got convicted, right? All these women were coming out of the woodwork. He was getting, women writing him letters. It was well known
I'm
about
surprised
this.
He's not married by now.
Yeah, I am too.
His brothers are both married.
Yeah, I was going to say, I am surprised he never got married. So he, what was I going to say? So I do want, so then he's like on death row for 18, 16 years. And then now he's quote unquote in Gen Pop. I just wonder what it's like for him. Like how, is he infamous or do people just ignore him? Or, does he get a lot of shit from people? I don't know.
Yeah. Cause it looked like, they blurred out the background, but it looked like where he was, it was that type of prison where, there's this big common area.
Yeah.
And, I don't know how long, and then you see the cells kind of around. It's kind of like that show we watched. What was that called?
Unlocked.
Yeah. So I don't know if he's only out of the cell for, an hour a day or.
God, I hope it's not like that. But at least I don't like that at
least those guys, like the guys in Unlocked, they had like a yard. You could go outside. You could. Death row. You don't go anywhere.
Yeah, you're in that.
You're in this you don't go anywhere. You don't see when people come to visit you, you have to stay handcuffed, like cuff your feet and your hands. Even, you can't hug your person or who comes to see you or anything. It's really like draconian. Thank God they got rid of that. But
yeah. Well, and I do remember, if you remember the West Memphis 3, Damien Eccles, who was convicted, he was put on death row. He talked about that. One of the reasons why they took that Alfred plea is to get Damien out. Like Damien was dying, like lack of vitamin D, lack of like all of it. He was slowly dying inside that inside that that little hovel they put him in, and that basically they're like, we have to take this deal because we've got to just get out. Like, we can't keep fighting for our innocence, even though they, and I do believe they're innocent. I always have. So I think that's one thing that, again, I think this might not be a very popular opinion, but even if someone has, now we're talking about we're talking about these cases where we're not quite sure of the innocence or guilt, but even someone who's guilty, they deserve sunlight. They deserve, you know what I mean? It's a little
They're
bit like
still
this,
a human being.
And that's the thing. People always get into this headspace of, well, I no longer have my family member to talk to and I can't see them, and you can go see your family member and all of that. It's like, yes, the person is still physically here, but their life has been altered. There has been this punishment, and being separated from your family. I don't care how good of a setup you have it in prison. People always choose to be home in their own homes with their own freedoms and their own thing. It is a punishment. It's a punishment enough. So why do we have to keep punishing people like to an inhumane place? We need to be better than the criminals. We need to be better than those people. Right? That's how we have to hold ourselves to that standard. And it drives me crazy that we feel so superior to people, yet we are just as cruel and mean in this way, but we feel justified because they're quote unquote a bad person. Anyway, off my soapbox with this one. It just pisses me off. So sick of that. Anyway.
Okay. So I'm trying to,
we're talking about the burglary. And it wasn't so.
Well, yeah, I think we exhausted that, and just talking about the lack of time to prepare for the case. I forget who said this. Someone said that, Garagos kind of overpromised and underdelivered.
Yes. So Garagos came out swinging. Apparently, Garagos came out and they nailed them right away about the meringue and the Martha Stewart thing, which was one of those things like, why didn't anyone in the prosecution? You have so much time and money. Why didn't you look into that? That, I think, was a huge mistake when they claimed
I don't think they saw it as really important. I get the sense. They thought they had this slam dunk case because they have, these bodies that, washed up. And they got an affair in the location of the bodies. And, the rest of it is just, it's amazing. I mean, there's no other... Just, I don't know. This was a character assassination case.
So,
he's a liar and a cheater, and
And Al Brocchini didn't do well on the stand. He admits that in both documentaries that Garagos ripped him, and like Garagos got him hard. But yeah, I do think that Garagos made a mistake by overpromising. Like, we're gonna find the real killers. I think the position really needed to be, there's
just focus on
reasonable doubt and holes.
Focus on, and I want to talk about reasonable doubt. I just feel like these jurors, they don't really understand what reasonable doubt means. I mean, it's a concept I think a lot of people don't. And again, it starts with a presumption of innocence, which you have to start from that place.
But we don't.
And then all these jurors going in, they'd already seen all this media stuff. It was so stupid. They didn't need to move the trial to another county. I don't care what county you live in, what state you live in. Everybody has been exposed to all of this stuff. They're going in without a presumption of innocence. And then you have to find that the evidence is so convincing that no reasonable person could have any doubt about the defendant's guilt. So I think having no forensic evidence tying Scott to the murder is
reasonable doubt.
Reasonable doubt. I mean, I don't know what if he. I don't want to.
Well, but I will say I was very encouraged. We saw some of the jurors, and we saw them in both cases. And there was that one guy, I didn't write his name down, but he was sort of the older gentleman who, and I was very encouraged when I saw him because I felt like, okay, he seems like a reasonable person. He seems like a together person. And he really he said, like, when I sat down and was going to go into this, I really, felt like he had an affair. That doesn't make you a murderer. Like, I feel like some of those, the jurors that they interviewed, except for the redheaded woman, I think she had a feeling right from the beginning, but it felt like the jurors were, that they did have the right mindset when they came in of like, we need to give this person, a fair shake. We can't just assume it's one thing. But that's when I wonder if, because they couldn't bring in any of the burglary stuff, and because Garagos didn't bring those other people in, that, right, like how people perceive reasonable doubt is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They don't understand reasonable doubt because I don't know. I just don't know how you can look at that case and say there is no reasonable doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And they convicted him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they went into it with a good attitude, but ultimately, there's lots of jury instructions about reasonable doubt, and didn't seem to make an impression on them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even a hung jury. Like most people, I think, thought it was going to be a hung jury because, there was reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
But
well,
anyway.
and again, I think this comes back to all of this pressure, right? That once these cases become national, now there's all this pressure to, you've got to find someone's got to be the scapegoat, right? Because your Modesto Police Department is going to look like they don't know what they're doing if someone's not convicted of this. So now we've got to have someone to hang this on. And, that kind of pressure to do that and to make that, work. And I also think that, I know you don't like Brocchini, but I do think that truly in these detectives' mind, they feel like they got the right person. They really do. And I think that part's hard, right? Once you believe something.
But as a detective, you should not be forming
I know that
on the first night.
Yes.
Within hours of getting assigned this case. So I don't really cut them a lot of slack.
So can we go back to the van for a second? Because we haven't really talked about the burned out van. So the van was found the day after the disappearance. So the van, apparently, I didn't know this until this documentary, but so Stephen Todd, who was one of the guys, the white guys that got convicted of the burglary of the Medinas, his wife's sister, his sister-in-law, lived in a house right next to where the van was burned and found. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I never knew that. And then the whole arson investigator, where he said he tested part of the mattress, and he said, there's a luminol test you can do to see if there's blood, and they knew it was human blood. So then they took a sample, but then once it went back to the testing center, it was no longer human blood.
Well, they gave it to the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice said that no blood was detected, and that was the end of that.
And then they stopped looking into it. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
Well, also, I think a big factor with all this, DNA stuff and Scott's request for the DNA testing. This is 20 years ago. DNA is a lot.
Yeah.
Testing has come a long way. So stuff that they might not have been able to detect in the past. So, for instance, like the duct tape that was found on Laci's body when they recovered the body, they did test it back then, and it did show signs of human DNA, but they couldn't whatever the capabilities for testing at that time, they couldn't figure out who it was, but they think that now with the technology gone 20 years later, they probably can.
Oh, this is a point I wanted to make. One thing is, I do wonder what would this case be like if it was being tried today? Because I do think that the feelings about the police have changed considerably. I think that, obviously, Rodney King had already happened. There's some things that already happened by the time this case came about, but that, 20 years later with social media and everything, and the fact that we see everything and everything's being exposed to us, I do wonder if Scott would have gotten a different kind of trial if this happened today, because I think people are far more skeptical of the police, far more skeptical. And because of stuff like this, because of the fact that we understand biases and seeing what people are doing and seeing how destructive that can be. And we've had, I think, I mean, maybe I just don't remember them, but I feel like we've had a lot of very high profile cases. The Central Park,
Central Park 5.
But they like to be called the Central Park freed, or I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name, exonerated, the exonerated 5. We've seen that. We've seen the West Memphis 3. We've seen a lot of these cases. And because we have all these documentaries, we see this. So I do often wonder, like, would we have been able to look at this differently and not go to where we went? Because I think that absolutely we all just went with it. I mean, I was one of them. We all just went with the media story. And I don't think we do that so much anymore. I think we question a bit more.
Yeah, I think that's true. And we just know more. We've become a nation that's, fascinated by.
Yes. Oh, and also, but I was really surprised by how many tips there really were about just interesting things. And one thing, it was interesting that there was a mailman. His last name was Graybill, that they interviewed, and that he said that he delivered their mail between 10:35 and 10:50, but he did not hear a dog barking, and the gate was not open. And I'm going to tell you right now, as having 2 dogs, God damn it, they know when the mailman comes, and they never miss it, ever, ever, ever. So that's pretty telling. I think, you could argue that maybe he got the dates wrong or he made a mistake or whatever it is, but our mailman knows us.
He had a printout.
Oh, okay.
Did you see that? He had like I don't know but they showed it. It had the times on it. Like, cause I think, cause they scan mail, so certain kinds of mail, they scan it. You can hear them scanning it before they put it in I don't know. Anyway, he had some sort of printout that had, he narrowed it down. It was between like 10:35 and 10:50.
Yeah.
That is when they delivered the mail. And then Diane Jackson, is that her name? She saw the van and the people at 11:40. So if the dog was not home at between 10:30 and 10:50, that Laci's still on her walk. And then that woman Diane Service that lived next door, and her stupid timeline. That
Karen. Her name's Karen.
Karen, of course.
Her name is Karen. Poor Karen. Maybe that's how we came up with the Karen thing.
Yeah. She just messed up this whole thing with her receipts, and so they've put this timeline of 10:18 is when she says she put the dog back in. And I don't know, maybe the dog got out before Laci. I mean, this dog seems to get out a lot or something. Maybe the dog got out before Laci, while Laci was getting ready to go on the walk. And then, the dog somehow got it. She put the leash on the dog. The dog got out. She then had to run back and get something or go to the bathroom. I don't know. And then she puts the dog back in, but then they go, then they go on the walk.
How many times have my dogs gotten out? All the goddamn time. All the time they're getting out. And sometimes, I mean, I can totally see you put the dog's leash on and the dog's all excited. So that always takes a minute. And then I will then go off and do a few other things and the dogs will follow me around. But they also, if they can get out, they will get out. So that mailman thing, I was like, oh, I get this one completely.
Strong evidence.
Because I believe as a dog owner, it's very strong evidence because these goddamn dogs, they know when the mailman comes, and the mail person also, depending on where you live, I mean, like, we don't know our mail person very well, but he knows that we have these 2 dogs. Like he's very aware of this is our home. This is, this is what this happens here at this house. Now, the other one too, which I thought was really bad, was there was this guy, Tom Harshman, who he and his wife were driving, I think by the railroad tracks, and they saw a pregnant woman being forced into a van, and he called twice. He called on the 28th and he called them twice. And then he finally went into the police station because he wanted to make this report. And apparently, like, the investigators didn't really follow up. And someone made a very good point, which is, okay, so even if that wasn't Laci, a pregnant woman's being forced into a van. Are you going to investigate?
Investigate it.
Do something.
I'm sure he had a description, maybe even a license plate. I mean, if you care that much,
go look for this.
You're going to get some details and give it to the police. No, they probably just thought, oh, this is another crackpot.
Yes.
Like, trying to give a Laci Peterson tip. And I bet you, anytime they get a tip about I saw a pregnant woman, they're probably like, okay, next. Psych Legal Pop will be right back after these messages.
Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
They had already decided.
Well, because I think they had heard, right, there was one sighting of her up in Oregon, the state of Oregon, or maybe Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like maybe they got a few bad sightings in the beginning. And then they were like, oh, okay, these are all crackpot. And then there was also this one from prison. It was an officer who said correction officer who said he overheard a conversation between one of the inmates and someone that was calling them about Laci being spotted. And again, he called twice, no call back. And that Brocchini says that this guy, he didn't have any evidence of what he was talking about.
Well, no, this was very specific. There was a prison call where someone was talking about that guy, Todd, who took the fall.
Stephen Todd.
Yeah, Stephen Todd. They were talking about how Laci had confronted him.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's very specific.
Mm-hmm.
And he reported that to the police. This is exonerating evidence.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and
so let's go back to the other woman in the documentary, the one that worked with Garagos. So why would this be a Brady violation that Modesto didn't share these things with the defense? That they claim this Aponte, who is the correction officer, he recanted the statement, but Aponte saying, no, that's not true. So it does sound like that not all the evidence was given over to the defense.
Absolutely. And the prosecution practically admits that in these current proceedings.
Mm-hmm.
Because okay, so I don't know. So if we fast forward to like what's happening now with the Innocence Project, they brought two different motions. They brought one motion for to have like 14 or 15 items DNA tested.
17 items, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. So out of all of that, the judge denied all of it except for the duct tape.
Mm-hmm.
And again, because this other stuff, has to do with these alternate theories that this judge is not going to get into. And my question is like, what are these people afraid of? They're afraid of being exposed. Why not just give it over? The other motion is for, it's a motion for access to discovery upon a post-conviction writ of habeas corpus. So they have all this discovery they want.
Mm-hmm.
And the Modesto district attorney is basically saying, you're not entitled to all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We're not entitled to give you everything but the kitchen sink. So they're admitting they have a whole bunch of stuff, but it's just a lot of stuff and it's too much trouble and we're just not going to give it to you. And so now the judge is going to have to decide. I mean, what are they afraid of?
Yeah.
I mean, why not? If you think your case is so solid, why don't just turn it over?
Mm-hmm. That is very glaring about both Brocchini and the other guy. It's a little bit like, if I thought I was 100% right, if I felt confident, if I felt like I could sleep at night because I got the right person, then I'd be like, okay, here you go. Prove me wrong. So I do think, but I also, what I wonder is like, okay, so they want 17 things tested. Why can't all 17 be tested? Like, what's the big fucking deal? And I understand that, oh, this is expensive and it's this and it's that. Then say, okay, well, then Scott's family has to raise money to get it tested, or we're only going to pay for this much to be tested. And if you want more, it seems very arbitrary that it's a little bit of like, well, I get to decide what's tested and not tested. Well, it is.
And also, I read the statute that this falls under, this DNA motion thing. This is kind of a fairly new thing. And it says if you're indigent, then the state has to pay for it. So it's not even a money thing. It's like money. Look, these appeals and what they cost the state millions and millions of dollars. Like, this is a drop in the bucket. So yeah, I just feel like the Stanislaus County is hiding something. And I think his attorney, the woman who was arguing at the hearing, I don't know if it was her or if it was the woman in this documentary, saying something like they'd never seen a district attorney's office ever in their entire career be so just unwilling to turn over evidence. Something's,
something's wrong
shady
here.
Yeah, this is such a big case. They should be like, okay, here.
Yeah.
Fine. Take it all. Because this is about justice. This isn't about like defending your win. And that's how the police, that's always their mindset. They want to defend their win, and the prosecutors want to defend their win. And it's like, it's not about you. This is about having justice served. And this DNA motion, it's not an appealable order, but you can file a writ of mandate, which I assume that Innocence Project is doing that. They can say that there was an abuse of discretion, that this judge who decided this motion abused her discretion, and then order her to allow the testing. So it's not completely over. He still has, still keeping, still alive here.
And there was one other thing that I had never heard about, which was this watch. This Croton watch that she had, that was apparently, there was a watch that looked very similar to the watch that Laci had, that was at a pawn shop on the 24th. And that apparently police picked up the watch and no one's ever seen it again. That, and the police are saying that they didn't have to share this because they couldn't prove it was if it was hers or not. That was their explanation.
But it's a very distinct watch. How many people in this world even have that? I mean, and I guess she was wearing it.
Yeah, apparently she had just gotten it. She had just gotten it like recently. She inherited it and she just got it. And that's how, that's what that is. But I was like, oh, there are a lot more little holes than people are willing to own. Just back to the net, I did think that the Netflix documentary, I thought it was well done. I mean, I think it was interesting to hear from Laci's friends and hear a bit more about Laci, because I feel like through all of this, I don't know a lot about Laci. These bits and pieces here and there. So I thought it was nice to hear from them. One thing I thought was really funny is that, my favorite was Scott's sister Susan trying to explain away the affair. She's like, well, it wasn't even really an affair. Was what I mean? It's like, oh, Susan,
give it up,
Susan. You gotta own that your brother is, had this affair. I was like, oh, this doesn't make you look too good. But, I mean, and that's the thing. And I think that Ted Rowland sums it up well, which is and we've seen this very clearly. These two documentaries, one made from Scott's family, the other one made from Laci's family. And both sides believe that they are right, believe that they know what's going on. And as a mother of a victim of this murder, it's Sharon Rocha and her family and that side. They need to believe, they have to believe, they need to believe that this is what the truth is. And it's the same for Scott's family. Scott's family, like, And they had someone in the Netflix documentary, I think her name was also Sharon, that Sharon, or was it, she was an expert, Sharon Hagen. Yeah. That, she talks about, how, right, that it's really, really hard for families to wrap your brain around your own family member doing this, that Scott's family can't accept it because of the severity of the crime.
Yeah.
How can a person kill their wife and unborn son? And that's really where it keeps sort of where we're kind of stuck with these two sides, is it's such a horrific thing. Neither one can believe that the other can't be true or can be true.
Yeah, I do wonder why, though. I wonder why the Rocha family wasn't I mean, they were supporting him at first. They were just like, oh, he has nothing to do with this. And then as soon as the affair came out, they just did a 180. And it's like, okay, but you were just defending this guy. Isn't there a possibility that you're not going to entertain any possibility that, I assume they knew, the evidence about these other things and the burglary and whatever, But I guess grief just, you have to survive. You have to compartmentalize the event in some way. And they just, they can't be on the fence. They can't be in La La Land. Like, they have to have a belief. They have to have a position.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just, it's horrible.
It's horrible.
It's horrible and also too, like, it was interesting at the very beginning of the documentary, Janie Peterson says, hi, I'm Janie Peterson. I'm Scott and Laci. I'm Scott and Laci's sister. Or how did she say it?
Yeah, I think because she said it together.
Scott and Laci. Yeah, I'm Scott and Laci's sister-in-law. So obviously, Laci was a part of her family.
Yes. Yes.
She loved her. Scott's whole family loved her. They were together for like 5-6 years before this happened. So yeah, it's just, I guess that's why this is such an enduring case. It's just,
and I think that the family, again, I don't know. And maybe it's changed in the last 20 plus years, but this cheating thing, I think that, I think with Laci's family, right, it was the cheating. The minute they heard about the cheating, it was like, wait, huh? What's going on? And I think that just that the fact that they thought they knew this person, and it was like, oh, I don't know this person. I don't know him as well as I thought. So now anything is possible. And then that kind of opens up that door for anything. And I don't know. I don't know if we see cheating the exact same way. I think there's been so many, we see, because of social media, because we're such a much more open, talking, putting everything out there kind of world, that I don't know if we see cheating the exact same way, or maybe again.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, we find out when the Real Housewives' husbands are cheating. It's like, it's celebrities and politicians and so it has become something that people still don't like it. It's not acceptable, but people aren't as shocked by it.
Yes.
And in this case, it was just a bad combination.
Well, I don't think we're so black and white about it. I think that we used to be far more black and white, and I think people who had been cheated on didn't talk about it so much. Like, it was this dirty little secret. So, no one could ever find out. And I think now we're less black and white about cheating. But it is interesting. Like, the minute that came out, it was like, oh, we don't know who this person is. And I think, you're right. When it comes to your grief, I think it's easier just to kind of look at one person and go, okay, I'm going to put all my anger and frustration and sorrow into you. And here we go. That makes it a lot easier to cope with it, all. But, I mean, it is an utterly fascinating case. I don't know. I still don't know. I don't know.
No. And none of us know. None of us were there. We don't know. No one will ever know.
Maybe we need to find like a psychic that we can start asking these questions to, so we can get to the answers.
I'm sure many psychics have been consulted about this case.
Yeah, what have psychics, Kate Casey always has like that Jonathan Mark on her podcast. Like, I wonder if she's ever talked to him about this case, because I'm very curious to hear what the psychics think, or what people, who have some sort of, whether you believe in that or not, if you believe people can, get in touch with people in the other realm or not. But, because you wonder if Laci's up there kind of like, Jesus Christ, this guy's an asshole, but let him out. Or if she's like, what are you bitches talking about him? He did it. I don't know.
I don't know. We'll never know. I have a feeling that, even if Scott wins on some of this discovery stuff, and even if he gets a new trial, or, oh God, can you imagine that?
If he gets set free.
A new trial. Well, it would just be a new, well, I guess if they found, there's certain findings that I guess could automatically exonerate him, but I think the best he could hope for is a new trial. And even that is a long shot. And can you imagine this case being retried? I mean,
whoa, we got so much content.
Oh,
yeah. I don't know. Maybe he will be. Listen, there's lots of people. For a long time, I didn't think the West Memphis 3 would ever be, released. We didn't think a lot of things.
Yeah.
So crazier things have happened. Listen, the Menendez, I think, are the Menendez brothers who, again, obviously they are guilty. We do know that. They did do it. They admitted it. But the Menendez brothers are going to get, and, it looks like they might get another trial or chance at that. So, these things can happen. But I do think that if he is ever set free, it's like he's got to go off into some small hovel into the world and just hide there. Because I just don't, how can he work? How can he do anything? There's such vitriol and hatred.
He's gonna have to be holed up in Sister Janie's house. Or had to put on a disguise to go golfing.
So is Scott's parents, are they both still alive, or did his mom pass?
No, I believe they're both.
The dad passed too?
They're both dead. I know that mom passed away. I remember that. And they were, 20 years ago, they were like in their 60s or at least. Maybe closer to 70.
Yeah, it's interesting that we see Scott's sister and we see the sister-in-law, but we never see the brothers. Like, I wonder if they're very much like,
They probably don't want to be involved in it. But, because that was their second marriage, So
yes. He was the product of the two.
Right.
Of them,
and the brothers and sisters are older than him. So the parents were a little bit older. So I'm sure the father's deceased also. But yeah, and what they went through, this is their child. This is their baby.
And they also,
and they loved Laci.
Yeah, I was going to say, they lost Laci. They lost their grandchild. Yeah. They lost all of those things that they thought what their life was going to be in the future. They lost that too. Everybody.
Yeah, there was that scene where Janie had a box or a couple boxes of letters that people had written to her, basically saying, how sorry they were, for their family, and, very sympathetic. So yeah, there were some people out there who,
but that's the thing, right? But those people would never go public, right? Because they have to, and secretly, I really see your side of the thing.
Right.
And let me mail this to you and not say it. And that comes back to just about all the hate and anger we've gotten from the comments that we've made. I can't imagine. It's just, to potentially have a different opinion about this case just makes you a bit of a pariah, that you're some awful person. And that's what these investigators talked about too. That investigator that you mentioned, the Mike Gad, is it Gad?
Oh, Gudgel.
He talked about that. He said that every time he would bring it up to people just wanted to, yell at him and slant, and get in his face about it. And he's like, God, I have a right to an opinion.
Yeah, he was an investigative reporter who covered the trial, and then he went off and he covered the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. I mean, he's a credible, reputable.
Yes.
And then he came back from the war, and he said he just couldn't stop thinking about this Peterson case. And then he started doing more investigation. And a lot of the stuff that we have been talking about today was stuff that he was uncovering and he was looking up, and he's a big part of the Peacock documentary. So yeah, it's not like everyone who thinks this is crackpots.
Yes. There's some very intelligent people.
Yeah. And attorneys and so yeah.
Yeah. Do you want this Mike Gidgel in your corner, or do you want Nancy Grace? Which one are you going to go with? Think about that for a while.
Nancy Grace, who doesn't even resemble journalism in any way, shape, or form. She's literally just like a crazy person, screaming.
It should be like a podcast. Do you know what I mean? It's like her show. The fact that she has the platform that she has, it's almost kind of like, no, she should be like us, like a podcast. And, if you want to go giving her opinions. These are her opinions about things. That's what,
is she
these podcasts. I don't know. I've never watched her. I cannot stand her.
Was she on Fox?
Stand her energy. No, was she CNN? Not CNN. But also, don't forget, but it was Larry King.
Oh,
Larry King was given, there were a lot of these shows that were every day, just capitalizing on this whole thing. So, there's a lot of people that are if Scott Peterson has been wrongly convicted, there's a lot of people responsible for this.
Yeah.
Not just these prosecutors.
Well, her current gig is, she has this show called Crime Stories with Nancy Grace on Fox Nation.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
But yeah, she was on one of the big, I think maybe has she always been on Fox? I don't know.
Wait a minute. Was she on Court TV? She had to be Court TV.
Well, Court TV mostly like televised trials and had people actually comment on the trial. Like her show is just, I don't even know how to explain it.
Yeah, I've never really enjoyed these shows where people are yelling. I don't like the yelling, and just shoving their opinion down my throat. I don't like that. Present me the fact. Tell me what's going on, and I'll figure it out from there.
Yeah.
So,
well, if you made it this far,
yes,
you don't hate us. And, thanks. I don't know what the fallout is going to be.
I don't know either. I guess you can hate us if you want to hate us. I mean, listen, I'm passionate about things. So if someone wants to passionately hate me and what I have say, it's okay.
We both said we don't know if he's.
We don't know. We don't know.
We're interested in justice.
Yes,
that's it.
And justice and prison reform and the system getting it,
the Constitution.
Right.
Yes. Stuff like that.
What is right.
Exactly.
All right. Oh my
thank
gosh.
you so much for supporting us. And if you don't already, please subscribe to the podcast. And if you like this show, please go give us a positive.
Don't call us nitwits.
Yeah. Please go give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And if you don't like us, I don't know, I can't stop you, but it's not gonna do anything.
But you don't have to call us mean names. I guess nitwits is much better than you dumb bitches or whatever other things that people have called us. Those people say it directly to our, emails.
Yeah. And if you want to respectfully disagree, fine.
Yeah.
I'm open to hearing anything. Just don't name call. That's not nice. Pretend
peace and love. Peace and love.
Peace and love. Pretend as if, your children and your grandma would be reading what you wrote.
Yes.
And if you really like us and you really want to hear more of our opinions, like no holds barred opinions, you can subscribe to Patreon and you can hear a weekly bonus episode where we just tell it how it is, how we want, whatever say, can't talk. Say whatever we want to say. And then once a month, we do a special true crime episode and we do a Ask Us Anything episode. We just put out a couple of days ago and we really give you our opinion.
Yes.
Really tell you what we think. So,
but we answer legal questions. If you have a legal question, mental health question, those kinds of things. So,
all right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you
Bye.
later. Bye.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Pepsi Prebiotic Cola in original and cherry vanilla. That Pepsi taste you love, with no artificial sweeteners, only 30 calories, just 5 grams of sugar, and 3 grams of prebiotic fiber. That great Pepsi taste with even more to love. Pepsi Prebiotic Cola. Unbelievably Pepsi.